Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. Feedback is immensely important. Feel free to reach out to me. Two ways to do this is either through email or YouTube. Now, I greatly appreciate those who reach out to me through email. Thank you so much. And email is the best way to get instant response from me. But I always appreciate those who reach out to me and make comments on YouTube. Now, I'm on a lot of different platforms, so it won't be hard to find me. And word of mouth is greatly important and valuable. So, I appreciate all of you, and, want to go on and share with your friends, loved ones. All they got to do is type in the Harboring Light. That's me. Okay, so it's Friday, so I'm getting current. So this time what I'm going to do is focus in on the Disney effect, or Disney star effect, as I like to coin it. So what I'm going to do is there's been a lot of recent events that have come out about former Disney stars from the early 2000s to the mid 2000s. So I'm going to give my take about it. Here we go. Okay, so with Hilary Duff and on to Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez, she has been gracing the headlines, so to speak, which is not really news, but, what can you do? With her takes on the aspects of immigration, which is a very diluted expectation of reality. However, now she's in the headlines because of this whole thing which leads back to Hilary Duff. This whole thing with the need to be amply, overtly sexual in nature, and saying that I am an adult now. Hey, look at me. Look at my, embracing of being my sensuality, sexuality. And it's even more, if you was reading that right, this whole thing with her being in a new film or something that's really X-rated. And if I'm not mistaken, y'all fill me in on it. Feel free to email me or leave comments on this episode or what have you. Pushing the blame towards her husband or what have you, or he has something to do with it. I don't know. And so, getting back to Hilary Duff with this whole aspects of her, bracing the covers of a magazine. But the problem is, she was the first round or, first screenshot photo session of it. The bathing suit of choice, it was not really appropriate at all because, she whether she wants to like that image or wants that, loves that, is not an image. It's so an honor and a way of life. She's a mom, even though she happened to be a former Disney child star she, for one, is a mother. And so for her to, oh, yeah, look at me, and, I'm a woman, but I'm still in my prime. So you can't, no. Because you have to, for one, think about your loved ones and, all of the scrutiny that's going to be behind that as time goes on with them, specifically with her children. And then now getting to with Miley Cyrus here, she's a queen of, you can say, controversy. But recently, you know how there is this research, I don't know, this isn't something that's not going to be new, it's something that's going to be very prevalent to do with reunion. And so it's interesting enough, this whole thing where I don't want anything to do with Hannah Montana did da. And she comes back and she has this tell-all. It's quite interesting enough that the tell-all is all centered around her, and none of the cast members came back or anything like that. It was pretty much like a tabloid piece, was focusing in on this whole thing where, let me give you the tea about my former glory days when, lady, look, you are in your 30s, then you're talking as if this is normal to, speak on what happened to you when you were 16, some odd, in that stage of your life. That's not, come on. So it makes you wonder about the aspects of as I coin it, the Disney effect. So what that means, what I'm saying here, what that means to me is, why is it, for whatever reason? Now this isn't just, whole centered around Disney. It's in general, but Disney is is very which is irony, because Pillar is supposed to be the best, right? But in this case, not really. There's a lot of very clear examples of child stars being adamantly geared towards, I want to showcase that I'm an adult now. I don't want to be a part of this. I want to do things to let you know that I am overtly adult, and to a point of making extreme decisions about their dispositions, where it has to do with sexually, or whether it has to do with political means or what have you. That also speaks a lot of volumes about the influence and the impact that Disney has on our culture. Me, my husband and I, our generation, we are the 90s kids. And so we saw a lot of different transitions in the aspects of where Disney was going, as far as crafting an image or a quality of what Disney means to our culture. And some say that is the issue in which the transition of what's going on today, with the aspects of how influential, Disney is on us. So what does this mean? What am I saying? All right. I'm sure I mean, it's not if you live on the rock, you don't know what this term is. And you have to live on the rock. So the term in saying a Disney adult, right? It used to be where anything that was centered around Disney, kid eccentric. That there's no, there's no ambiguity about it. There's nothing to say. Oh, adults wearing Disney clothes, they would look goofy. It would look weird, like literally goofy. And now it's prevalent to where grown ass people, going to theme parks, buying the merchandise, to the point of going in debt in order to, revive or relive a nostalgia, because they are missing the aspects of what is really important in life. It's very important to obtain and be accessible to milestones. So what do I mean by this? I would say, and I wholeheartedly agree with it, with I don't quite know his name, but the Poor Man's Podcast on YouTube. Now, he made a very poignant and elegant point, and I've said this before, and I'll reiterate it again. Now, if you want to hold on to, if you want to pass down history in a more beneficial way, go through the milestones of having a family of your own. But the problem is, and some say, this is attributed to, where the capitalist machine, as they want to say, when, hey, if you're being really honest with yourself, capitalism is the only way for a society to truly thrive. And the problem is with that is people don't account for and won't be honest with the aspects of the human nature of greed and all this other assorted things that come with it. That's just the bear of it. I mean, get over it, But when you have the complacency to say, well, I pretty much, or it is saying, encouraged. I think it's fine to just be single all the time. Or I think it's fine to do everything on my own. I think it's fine to find my value in something that is commercially obtainable, concrete, to where actually building a life for myself has no meaning. And so that's why they say, and which I can, it makes a lot of sense, that Disney is skewed and weird because it's so many adults projecting their own insecurities onto it. And Disney, playing it up and saying, hey, bet we're gonna double down on that, and we're gonna make it even more prevalent to where we are, we are purposely, milking that for what it's worth, to where normalizing things that are very inappropriate for children to be exposed to, or normalizing where it's appropriate for adults to not get out of the mentality to where it's just wish fulfillment all the time, And so, now it's something to be said, too, about the aspects of the difference of the correlation between, certain child stars that were in certain television shows or certain movies, or, outside of Disney. Also, on the flip side of that, of typically the negativity of which going back to with recent headlines with not understanding, being appropriate with Hillary Duff, and then the inappropriateness with the current Miley Cyrus deal with the reunion, and then the overtly with unfortunately Selena Gomez. There's so many different examples of that, of child stars, overtly showcasing their sensuality or sexuality in different ways, when they become adults, and that part of their life is over. Now, on the flip side of that, I'm trying to think about her name. Now, she was, let me look her up right quick. All right, so you can have an idea of exactly who I'm talking about. Hold on, bear with me. All right, so characters. Let me look her up. Let's see. No, that's not right. Okay, bear with me here. I don't know whether or not. Okay. Alright. Okay. Huh. Okay. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to double check to make sure this is correct, because I think so. Yes. Now, Danielle Panabaker. Now, who is she? She was in The Flash. She was the Doctor. Frost. All of that. And then she played a lot of different assorted characters. But anyhow, my point about bringing her up is that she, for one, was a part of the machine that is of Disney. Now, her and her sister were both a part of it. And so she took a very different approach when it came to how she viewed herself and everything with it. She adamantly said in her dress, she said, well, it's time for me, and she was very graceful about it, it's time for me to push beyond this and, call things for what it is. Disney has an agenda. For whatever reason, they want to overtly, even though they try to hide behind the scenes that, we're not, that's kind of fake reality bullcrap of saying, with the fake shows, with, I keep, because that's a part of my generation with the whole thing with reality TV. The best example that I can give with that is The Hills with Lauren Conrad or whatever. So, I'll get back to the point. So, with that show, these assorted characters were very bland, but for whatever reason, they were prompted up, and they even to Lauren Conrad having her own clothing line and all these kind of things. But, it was scripted television. It wasn't real reality. And so, excuse me. And so, she pointed out, she said, they have an agenda. They, for whatever reason, they want to push sexuality onto children. They want to overtly, fuel the flame and be a part of the problem. Essentially, now I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she was. She saying she was being very animate about that. And so she didn't stay with Disney for very long. Her and her sister, transitioned. They took different routes. But she wanted to remain an actress. And she took roles that's, when she was a part of the fashion, when it was actually decent. It's unfortunate. That's the problem too. When we come with, and that's a whole other different issue that I'll address with comic book and the legacies of Marvel, DC, and all of these. There's an issue when you put in political agendas that don't need to be there. It takes away from the authenticity of the story. And so, she took specific roles that are that have depth, and she didn't, brace herself as a means to look at me, where it's very adamant that the child actors who were former Disney stars, it's just a cry for help. She had a very healthy approach, and that's the difference. And that's what should be looked at, when we see and these things, these headlines come out, and all these things. What is it saying about the aspects and the value and the input that these companies have on our culture? Because essentially, too, keep in mind the companies that are very successful, and having the power to say and present things, they mean something if you're not, careful. Because specifically, you got to be very careful when it comes to the aspects of children and influence. Even though, me being a parent, it's a number one job to, be there to listen and learn from them and speak to them and guide them. A good parent understands that, things happen and stuff that you don't want your child to see can happen. And so you shouldn't have to be in a state or in a place to where, I better be careful about my child being exposed to something that has to do with children. That's insane. Just like with Nickelodeon, there's no reason that you have to censor something that's supposed to be kid-centric. It's crazy. Anyway, that's my 2 cents about all of that. All right, that's all I got. So, y'all feel free to reach out to me, extend the conversation. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, feel free to reach out 2 ways, email, and then again, YouTube. Okay, so this reaches the end. On to next week, keeping you current. All right.